Lab number 82. In this lab we continue to set up MobileFirst Platform Application Center on Bluemix, and right now what we will try to do is we will try to create the local instance of application server. We'll be using Liberty profile for that, and we will try to verify that we can actually set up the application center and work with it with a database that is already there on Bluemix with all the tables. So we'll try to make it work local with local Liberty and with remote database. And we will start actually with set up the Liberty profile. So what we need to do is to open the browser and type IBM Liberty profile. So the third link is what we're interested in, download the Liberty runtime. And here is what we will need to download, because we don't want to use it inside the Eclipse, we want a standalone runtime. So just select the download and accept the license terms. While it's downloading, we can actually clear our downloads folder. As you remember, in previous labs we put here Db2 and a couple of other things, so we may remove all of that. So now when we have our profile downloaded, so what we need to do is to actually unpack the zip archive, and we can do it right inside the downloads folder. So now our Liberty profile runtime located inside the WLP folder inside the downloads folder. So next step will be to create an instance of our server that will be located inside user servers, and we will do it using the terminal. Let's navigate to downloads folder and then WLP, and then to bin folder. And what we need to type here is server create and then the name of the server. I will use something like AppCenter. You can use the same, it doesn't really matter, this name won't go anywhere. So the server is created and we can right away start the server. The command will be server start and then the name of the server. It's AppCenter in our case. So now we can verify that server is working. We can go back to browser and navigate to localhost, and the port 9080 is default one. So here we have our Liberty runtime with the app server, with the application server itself, and basically nothing else for now. Next step for us will be to configure the actual application center running on it. So for that we will need to navigate to Knowledge Center for our MobileFirst Platform version 7.1. And what we are looking for is the installation guidance for installing the application center. And first step will be for installing the application center manually. And deploying the var files. As you can see, you have the article for either deploying the var files or the ER file. We will go with separate var file scenario, and we will select the configuration for Liberty profile. So there are a few things that we will need to do. We will need to modify the server XML with the proper configuration. We will need to add some features to our Liberty profile that are not there by default, like Servlet 3.0 or JDBC 4.0, for example. We will need to verify that app security 2.0 is also there. And afterwards we will do that. We will also need to copy var files inside the apps folder of our instance, I mean the Liberty profile server instance, and we also will need to configure the database to work with it. So let's start with actually copying the var files. So for that, let's go to our AppCenter, which is located inside downloads WLP user servers, and then to apps folder and copy from our host machine from the console folder two WAR files, the AppCenter console and the application center itself, and pass it here, just like that. So that was the first step. The second step, we will need to actually modify the server XML. So for that, let's go back to our terminal and navigate one level back and open it using Atom text editor by typing Atom and then dot to open the editor with this folder. So now when we have editor opened, so we can navigate to users, servers, and then AppCenter server XML. So this is what we will be modifying. So first of all, we will need to add some more features here. So let's go back to browser and copy the text for our Liberty profile. So we actually downloaded version 8.5.5, and those three options will be actually the perfect fit for us. I will replace everything I have here with the three features from the Knowledge Center. And we will need to verify that all of them exist. So for that, let's go to terminal and go back to bin folder and do the following. Type here install utility. So let's actually make it in a proper way. Install utility, and then you need to specify install commands and the name of the feature. So we are interested in those three things. So most probably the application security 2.0 is already there, but we will verify it. Let's start with JDBC 4.0. You need to agree, so just type 1, I agree. That's it. The next step for us will be to verify that app security is there, so let's type app security 2.0. Yep, as you can see, it already exists. And the final step that we need to do is to install Servlets 3.0. Again, 1 for I agree. And finally it's there. So now we can go to our XML and make other modifications. So next thing that we will do is we will indicate the host. So in this case, we will just need to type host and then star for proper mask. It will mean that it will be launched not only on localhost, but actually on any IP. We will be able to access it. The next step for us will be to copy the code for application center that we have here in our knowledge center. So just basically copy everything and pass inside. You can do it after the application manager, just like that. So a few important things that you need to know here. First of all is the location of Android SDK. To be honest, you don't need it. You will need it only if you're running the IX platform, in case the extraction of the Android APK file will not work, the native one that is used in MobileFirst Platform. So this can be removed in our case. Next thing that you may notice here is that we have here two things. There are two applications actually. The AppCenter console that is used as the administration point when you where you upload in the new apps, configuring users and so on. And the application center itself, this is the client part where you can actually, through which you can install using either the web interface or connecting through services. And for both of them, you have a security control using different roles and groups. You ideally should connect here some valid LDAP server and configure authentication and authorization using the knowledge center as an example with the articles how to do it with LDAP. For now, we can stick with the default options. So here we have the username and the user for both for admin and for the client side. So what you can do here is, first of all, you can modify these users if you don't like. So right now you have AppCenter admin as the first user and then admin. And you have also demo user with the password demo. So you can modify the passwords, that will be the first and easiest option, or add new users as a member of AppCenter group, or actually you can also modify them here for different security roles. You can create different groups and so on. I will leave it as is. It doesn't really matter for me because we are now as working as an example. On this installation. This is not for production use or even for a pilot use, but I again would recommend to change at least the passwords for these two. So now we can go back to our knowledge center, and the next thing that we will need to do is actually to configure the database connection again within server XML. So for that we need to go to configuring Db2 database manually and selecting configuring Liberty profile for Db2. So this is what we will need to copy this text from second step and pass it to server XML once again. I will do it before the application, doesn't really matter, but I will just pass it here. So important things that you can find here is, first of all, the location of the drivers. We will need, again, as I said, we have two options: either to get drivers from the Data Studio client installation, either to download them. We will download them, so you will see where to find them. And we will need to put it somewhere and include within our server instance. So first of all, we will do a proper location of those drivers. Let's type here something like server config dir. This is the root folder of our server instance. So actually inside servers AppCenter, this will be the location. Then let's create a folder here, something like other libs. It doesn't really matter how you name it, it's just been easier for us to use something like connected with libs at least. So we'll know that those are the additional libraries that we are loading. And we need to point it here also. Just like this. And then we need to download the drivers itself. So for that, let's open the browser and type db2 driver download. The second link is what we need. Download from IBM website. Here we need to select the version that we would like to use. I would recommend to use always the latest. So in our case, Db2 version 10.5 is okay. So we can use the version of the latest fixed pack for this version. And what we will need is Db2 JCC4 driver. So select this one, click continue. You will need to sign in with your IBM ID. And then let's do a download using the web browser. Just click continue. And finally, download drivers. We can extract it again to downloads folder. And what we will need from there is actually the driver located inside the zip archive. We can extract it here. And from there take two jar files. And pass it inside our other libs folder. That's it. Now we can close both the websites and actually the file browser. So now when we provided the correct location for our drivers, the next thing will be to configure a data source. So as you can see, we have here this library reference for a JDBC driver. So it will work. We'll need to provide a database name. As you remember, in our case, it's SQL database. Current schema will be the same name as our username, just with uppercase. So for that, let's go back to browser. And what we will need to do, we will need to navigate to the Bluemix websites and log in inside the console. And now actually we need to go to our application, AppCenter Help as I named it, and again review the credentials for accessing our database. And first of all, we will need to copy host from here. So host here is the server name. Next, port is the same, username and the password we will need to copy. So let's start with the password. So make sure you're copying your values instead of trying to use mine. And as I said, the schema name is the same, just with uppercase, so user 12994, the same as username. So one more step that we will need to do in order to run it, so we can go again back to configuring the Liberty profile. And that one last step will be to configure actually the Ssl connection. We won't be configuring it fully as you will do it probably when you're installing it standalone, because when we will launch it on Bluemix, it will override over our Ssl settings with its own configuration. But what we'll need to do now is, first of all, specify that we will use SSL, so we will need to add SSL feature there. And second, we will need to specify the dummy key store that will be created automatically. As I said, these settings won't work right now, and it will be overridden once it gets deployed on a Bluemix. So what we will need to do is to type in Google Liberty profile SSL. And then, as you can see, we have two options. So let's go to Knowledge Center instead of Developer Works. Basically, what we will need to do is to define the simple thing. First of all, it's the feature that will work with SSL. So just add one more feature, SSL 10. And next the line that will actually provide the details about this key store. So let's copy this one and paste it somewhere, just like that. So we can type any password here. You can encode it using security utility that coming together with the runtime. You can type it right here, but this is not the best practice, of course. Every password should be encoded, especially in the XML files. But anyway, let me type something like test password, and then the key store will be located inside the root folder of our instance. So something like this. Let's name it key store, and the type can be the same. So that's it. Now we can save the server XML file, and basically what we will need to do is restart the server. Let's open the terminal for that. We can actually do the following. We can type server stop and then AppCenter. And then the same for start. Server start AppCenter. That's it. We have it running. So let's go and check. And instead of typing localhost, let's actually try to test it within the IP address. So for that, you can type in terminal fconfig to find out your IP address. It will be within Ethernet 0, so this is mine. Make sure you selected yours. So first of all, we will test the 9080 and then AppCenter console. Yep, you're seeing the console. Then let's try 9443. It should get us an error with HTTPS because it won't be able to verify the connection successfully. Yep. So let's stick with HTTP for now. 9080. And as you remember, the username is AppCenter admin, and then the password is admin by default. So now it will take some time until it will first time connect to database and get the list of apps. We don't have any, but we will deploy within a second one. So let's try some public applications. So I will type Android APK in Google, and let's go to Android APKs free, for example, and get some of the free apps like VLC, the open source free application. So I will download it from secure server, and this is the APK file downloaded to downloads folder, and then I will go to AppCenter and add this app. So you may notice that it has a thing called link to external store application. So here you can actually, in a full-featured AppCenter, can provide the URL within the Google Play or iTunes. It will download that APK or IPA file automatically and place it within your application center. So this feature won't really work with the Bluemix installation, because even if we will configure now the properly certificates that are needed for this feature to work, as I said, the Bluemix will override it. So it needs some additional configuration. So we will skip this feature for now. It won't be working, but everything else will be working. So as you can see, our APK file is uploaded there. We can provide some details about it, like description. Let's go with test description. We can specify that this one is the installer. It means that we will be able to install it through the web browser, and then click done. So now, as you can see, we have our application deployed, and basically what we can do next, we can check it within the client side. So in order to do that, we again need this URL. And then type AppCenter console/installers HTML. It will actually redirect us to the application center URL installers, and you can type this URL from the beginning in order not to have this redirect. Anyway, so this is the client side. It will look differently if you are running it on Android, for example. You can check it with inspect element. For example, if you will enable preview, let's say on Google Nexus 5, and then I'll refresh the page. So it will look this way. And when you will click install, it will start installing. On Android device, it will work perfectly. On iOS, it won't work because for iOS, you will need the HTTPS connection with TLS version 1.2, and you will need the proper certificate for that SSL, sorry. And this certificate should include the CA certificate that should be valid and everything like that. And here's where Bluemix Benefits are coming in. As you remember, in a dashboard, when we're creating our app, we actually had to provide the host. And this is our valid domain, AppCenter help.mybluemix.net. And this will be the URL where you can access your application center. And it will set up the HTTPS connection with the valid SSL, with everything else automatically for us. We don't need to bother about it. And we will do this final step in our next lab. So basically on this step we finished with the current lab number 8.2. We can close everything, and thank you.